Once upon a time, our storytellers gather, bringing with them only a set of dice, a scroll of magical story elements, and a passion to create. Rolling for genre, setting and time, and character archetype, our storytellers Ethan, Ari, and Nathan weave a tale right before your very eyes. Stay a while and listen as we share our creativity in progress.
Hello and welcome to Creativity in Progress. For those of you who have no idea whose voice you're hearing, it's me, Ethan, because finally I have my mic fixed. After over a year and some change of doing podcasting, I finally know how microphones work. Next, I will open the door by turning the knob, and I will sit down in the chair. All right. It's been a long time. COVID-19 and I are not friends. Anywho, welcome to Creativity in Progress. As I said before, I am Ethan Murphy. And as always, I am joined by my even lovelier host, Nathan Beatty Jr. III. Nathan Beatty, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
Yeah, you is. Yeah, you is. and in the loveliest of hosts, Ariana Horner. Ari, how are you doing?
Yeah, good.
I could hear her eyes shifting from side to side from here.
That was a wonderful little roller coaster of sound that was like,
Yay! As we go up Space Mountain. Okay. All right. Well, for those of you who this is your first time visiting us, we apologize for everything. Second of all, this is actually the second part of our story. The way this show works is in our first part one, we roll for a topic or a genre within a story. We get all the archetypes, the setting, and things of that nature, and then we start building more or less the first act based upon the things we rolled for. So, from the first episode, part one, we rolled for the genre of a Western. The setting was a spooky location. The time was the past. Archetype number one was a nomad. Archetype number two was a nonconformist. And archetype number three was a scientist. And then based off of those things, we created a story, a narrative. And the way we have it set up is that the nomad is a Mexican ghost hunter. And the scientist is kind of like Egon from the Ghostbusters. And our nonconformist is a young woman who's basically a fast-talking kind of a not charlatan, but somewhat of a confidence person. She's able to get out of any situation she needs to just by being quick on her feet and very witty. And the story opens with the scientist unintentionally doing some kind of an alchemist experiment, which ends up opening a portal to hell and summoning a demon from hell. And that demon ends up killing this scientist assistant, or is it that they're called? Yeah, scientist assistant, what have you? Scientist lab partner.
Assistants.
Science, yeah.
I tried before, didn't quite.
Science assistant is a word. Lab partner, basically. And because of it, and then we go from there that the nomad comes into town in a kind of typical Western fashion because he's hunting down the ghost or the rumors of a ghost being in this town. And the first thing that happens when he gets into town, he goes into a saloon, and because he's Mexican, and because things don't really change that much, he's treated with some hostility. Most of the inhabitants are trying to shoo him away aggressively, and then our nonconformist character is able to help diffuse the situation by being such a charismatic, charming talker. And then the two of them team up together because the nonconformist, she wants to get out of the town, either by pretty much by any means, either by having a partner or having someone help her raise money or whatever it might be. Meanwhile, our scientist character is going around trying to track down this monster that he's resurrected, or he's summoned. He has no idea where or what they are exactly, but he knows they're existing. And our nomad and our nonconformist character or start trying to follow clues, trying to track down the monster as well. They're interviewing people, looking through rumors or listening to rumors in the town. And they go out one night, and they end up, the scientist and the nonconformist and the nomad end up bumping into each other, all trying to track down this beast or this monster. And they decide to go back to the nomad, the monster hunter, decides that the best thing they can do is actually go back to the ground zero that the scientist was working at and see if they can find any clues there. Once they get there, the scientist starts having flashbacks and starts seeing weird images, and it seems almost like a dream in some way, in which he sees his lab partner getting killed again. And after this, the three of them decide to go back to an inn of some sort and kind of collect their thoughts and compare notes and get a little bit of rest. And that was more or less the end of Act 1. One real quick thing was, as Ari brought up last time, we know that it will be revealed that the demon possessed our scientist character, who you named Nathan, Nady Beatty. The scientist character is actually possessed by the demon himself. And so the images...
And the scientist is named Nady Beatty. I didn't want to make sure the demon wasn't named Nady Beatty. That's a really shit demon name, let me just tell you.
It is, but what was the name of the demon that possessed Reagan in The Exorcist? Wasn't it like, it was something like even
Pazuzu.
worse? But yeah, Pazuzu. So demon names are always the best.
Okay, but to be fair, that can be a scary name when the context is correct.
True.
If fair.
It all depends when you have a big voice. Yes, I am Pazuzu. Yeah, it just kind of.
Gosh. Fair enough. Even Pennywise sounds scary.
Oh, but you know what though? But I got a different word. I'm Pazuzu.
Done.
Okay, that's creepy.
You point made and then some. As I pee my pants. So the demon doesn't really have a name necessarily, but it could be that the demon hunter, the ghost hunter, maybe kind of. I think we established last time that the ghost hunter and the scientist were comparing notes, and based off of what the scientist told the ghost hunter, our nomad character, he was able to kind of pretty much assess on some level which type of monster he thought he was hunting, and try to form a better plan as to it. But I think we also talked about how we were getting into some of the details as far as what the scientist, because the idea was that the demon had possessed the scientist, and kind of it was unbeknownst to him, so that the demon was more or less wasn't necessarily the information that the scientist would give the nomad may not be truthful, because the scientist is being manipulated from the inside by this demon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
you're saying that like the scientist might not be really the scientist? Is that what, like, the
exactly? Because I think that's what you said. I mean, I think last time you said that too. Is that yes, that did come up, because we the nomad and our nonconformist, I'm just calling it NC, they never met the scientist before he was possessed. So however, there is no such thing as a strange way for him to act to them. They don't have a norm for him. They don't have what his actual was supposed to be like.
Well, I think the feeling I have about it is, I think it needs to be the scientist, but it needs, like, I like personally, I like the idea of the scientist battling with the demon, and the fact that the scientist is recognizes what's going on before they do, is battling with this demon. And then there's that whole thing where we had talked about, where, like, they find out he's possessed and they're like, why didn't you tell us? And he was like, I thought I could handle it, okay? And and like, and I like that little bit of a conflict. And I remember one of you mentioned that it was like, look, it was your hubris that got us into this in the first place, and then you were even hubristic again. I'm making up words.
That's
now.
a word. That's a word.
And yeah, so that was kind of my thoughts there. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too.
Sort of. Yes.
Yes. No, I like that as well. I think also, if you were, partly because even though this is a trio, there's always going to be somewhat of not a direct conflict, but a kind of a a confluence of ideas. If you have a scientist who believes in one way of handling things, and you have a nomad who's handled things as a monster hunter for a while, it won't be the same. And obviously, you have an NC in the middle who's designed to be a nonconformist. So all these different types of ideas thrown together, there's going to be a bit of tension from time to time as they discuss things. And obviously, if this scientist was so reckless in a way to literally open a portal to hell, his hubristic nature is definitely a big part of who he is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one other thing we discussed was that this night, because this is basically the beginning of Act 2, as they all go back to the room to sleep, essentially, the scientist would have a dream. He would have a kind of in a similar fashion to someone who is like a werewolf, but they don't know it yet. He would more or less have a dream of him going out into the town or somewhere, possibly running free as a monster, doing things, possibly even seeing himself kill someone or whatnot. And then he would wake up the next day and he'd feel kind of out of sorts, wouldn't know what's going on. The idea is kind of we're hinting at the idea that he is a monster, that he is in fact the monster, the demon in this story. Are we cool with that idea? Or how do we play that?
So I like it, but I also kind of want it to be very ambiguous. That there isn't, I mean, the audience is smart, and so they'd probably be like, oh, he's the demon.
Yeah, they would.
So I don't want to be too obvious with it. And I feel like that might be a little obvious. But
Okay.
it is also like the end of Act 2 or something.
No, yeah. No, that's what I thought too. The first thing that came to my mind was is this tropey or is this cliche? And it may be too cliche if I'm going the sort of werewolf path. So what might be more fun to do is, as opposed to tipping our hand that hard, that fast, is have it that as the trio goes to sleep, then we do see the monster attacking. And the way it's set up essentially is the last time we saw the scientist who was with the two other people, the nomad and the nonconformist, and they all presumably went to sleep. They're all each other's alibis, more or less. So when the monster goes out attacking people, obviously we don't think it is hit the scientist. And then the next day, when they start investigating another crime scene or what have you, scenes, the scientist could have kind of weird, eerie feelings or flashbacks or things of that nature, or he could check his hands and they seem kind of weird or something along those lines. It could be a little more subtle, or we could create reasonable doubt. The idea like the scientist is asking, how do I know these things? I feel weird, but does that mean I'm the monster or whatnot? And the same with the audience would ask too, without definitively knowing, possibly.
I don't know if y'all remember a TV show from the 90s. It was made by the same guy who did X-Files. It's called Millennium.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and it the main character in that he had a power essentially, and it was if he would go to a crime scene or if he would touch something of the killer's, he could see he essentially would have flashes of what the killer saw during the crime.
Ooh.
And I kind of like that idea that popped into my head when you mentioned that. I really like that idea of maybe that's kind of something that the scientist starts doing in these crimes. Like but I'm wondering how to present that in a way that seems organic and like maybe it's a thing where it starts happening and he's like, I'm a scientist and this isn't sciencey. I don't know what's happening.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know. I just throwing that idea out there.
Yes. I
like it, but I feel like it might be bogging down things with a little bit too much, making it overcomplicated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because we're kind of introducing the idea of powers in a way.
Yeah.
So I see what you're saying, but I think we can kind of find there's kind of a middle ground we can work with. What if we kind of go with the idea that it's almost, I like the idea of the scientist on crime scenes being connected to them. So what if it's that he's because he, like you said, he has a hubristic nature and he is possessed by this demon. What if when he gets to his crime scene, even as a scientist, he's very fascinated with what he's seeing. He's very fascinated with the idea of this monster. He's very fascinated with where these bodies are displayed and that kind of stuff.
Or maybe it's a thing where it's not as overt as like him having flashes of like the scene of the murder or anything, but maybe it's a thing where he's able to find clues faster. And
yes,
you really can't,
yes.
like, it's not really explained. Like, he's like, hey guys, look at this, and like in ways that are clues that would not have been found by just any random person, or at least would not have been found as quickly. And then that can kind of be a thing that they point to later, like, and that's how you knew that the semen was under the oven, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. Very commonplace for semen is under the oven.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, that was an old Dave Chappelle reference. Apologize.
I caught that. I caught it. I caught it. And I can catch Ari squinting up her face, getting to mute us.
I admittedly didn't get that reference, and so I was like, well, that's a very strange. I mean, do whatever you want, man. Whatever makes you happy. But like,
you do you. It's 2020.
Sorry, we were talking in the 90s. It took me back. Anyway, guys.
It's a great bit. But I like that idea too that he does, because I think part of what it is, we haven't really defined what the field of research the scientist is in. So it could be part of it is more or less he does have some demonology that he's into or whatnot. And even though he's comparing notes with the nomad, both of them have understandings of these things in the background. And so our nonconformist is kind of our avatar as far as our someone for them to explain this stuff to. So as they're doing these things, they're kind of talking to her. She's asking questions about it, and they're kind of talking to her, not mansplaining, but she obviously has no idea what demons are and that kind of stuff. So talking to her about it.
Right.
And so and the thing about it is the nomad is approaching these crime scenes and its evidence cautiously, because obviously his job is to take down monsters, but he respects them. He knows how dangerous they are. The scientist seems almost eager and kind of almost enjoying it in a weird way. The same way that because again, inside him he actually is possessed by this demon. So seeing this bloody scenes in a way is going to turn him on, and I guess on some level he's trying not to seem too enthusiastic. But even if he wasn't possessed by a demon, this kind of a scientist could still seem on some level like he would be, turned on by seeing such things. Scientists are turned on by weird, phenomenon and weird findings, that kind of stuff. Anyways, so I like the idea that you had of him finding clues bizarrely faster than he should be able to, and knowing one or two things more quickly, and the idea of him kind of being a little more enthusiastic about it, and that could of course plant the seed of doubt as well in the nomad character that he could start, or even better yet, it could be the nonconformist, because she, in a lot of ways, she's kind of a huckster at times, so she's better at picking up on these things than someone else might be.
I mean, her entire thing is sort of judging how people react and like kind of greasing the wheel and stuff like that. So she would probably be the one to notice, since the nomad doesn't really people that much.
Yes, exactly.
So she probably realizes something is wrong first.
Yes, and that's definitely it. She definitely has her suspicions first, and the nomad is not as wary of it.
Yeah, and I really like that idea. Sorry, y'all are just like triggering like random TV shows that have really weird concepts. But the show Lie to Me.
With
the government practice. Yeah,
I actually was a fan of the scientist that's based off of, Paul Eichmann, and his essentially micro expressions and all of that. And I like the idea of having the nonconformist kind of have that ability, because it, like, it if used properly, it can seem like a power. But I really like the idea of having her be very good at essentially being able to tell when people are bullshitting or not, and being able to read people really well. Because I've met people that know. In fact, I have a relative. My mom actually is really good at telling when somebody's lying or not. And I really like that idea of having that character kind of have that. So I don't know how y'all feel about that.
I love it.
I love it too. But I also, I mean, again, I don't want it to be a superpower thing. I want it to just be like innately. It doesn't really need to be mentioned. She's just really good at it.
Yeah.
Right. And the best part, the best way to do it too is to actually just not to have her say it out loud or even hear her.
Yeah.
It's just to see her have reaction shots of kind of her just looking at him and kind of little things like that. Some simple little subtext.
And this also is one of those things that can easily be established in the show don't tell kind of way, where in earlier interactions, like maybe like when the whole, initial meeting with the nomad and that sort of thing, it can be shown that she just has this uncanny ability of being able to just sense out the bullshit, and it not be like You're really good at that. Yeah, I know. It's a power I've had since I was like a teenager.
God, no.
Nothing like that. But just the show don't tell. Just have it be established through the story.
Big fan of show don't tell.
Yeah,
I love show don't tell. And actually, one thing that came to mind when you were saying is that I did see some episodes of that, and I think the creator requested Tim Roth to play him. I can't remember, but I remember one scene was there was a part where they were having a conversation. Someone was having this Tim Roth was having a conversation with somebody, and it was basically innocuous conversation. And they brought up a detail near the beginning of the conversation, and then later on they changed it. It came back again, but they changed it slightly. And he said something like as far as like I thought you said that they were. He kind of caught them in a lie haphazardly. He wasn't fishing or searching for things, but he kind of it just showed that he's always paying attention very closely.
Oh yeah,
and that people almost subconsciously kind of will tell little white lies. It could be something similar with our NC character. We'll call her Roth just because of that. It could be something similar where
maybe Encina.
Encina's even better. Encina's even better. It's a better name. Encina. But it could be something similar where there's a conversation where the scientists, they're at a crime scene. I guess this crime scene could be at the easiest thing would be at a person's home in the frontier or whatnot. They're there and they're looking for clues and everything, and the scientist is explaining what's happening. It could be even that the scientist is trying to explain to Encina something about the lore of this demon or whatnot, and he's going through this whole long tapestry. And then there's one little thing that Encina asked him a question about, where it's like, as far as, I thought you said it was like this. And he's like, oh, right, I'm sorry, I meant that too. I just, he gets kind of, but she catches on to things, and that's a way to show the audience that she is very perceptive, and that she's on a very slight level, she is suspicious of him in some way.
And that could almost be a thing where like and I really like that idea, and I think like the one time he answered, he was answering, the demon had taken over in that moment and was like, I need to control that, and I need to answer this question. But for some reason, the second time when she asks it again, or he's saying it again, the demon doesn't catch that he needs to control it, and he just says something different, and that's what catches them. I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh. Okay. So I like. All right. So there's
Do it.
So these three characters are kind of sort of in the prime position to catch this demon because the nomad probably hasn't dealt with a demon or this kind of demon before, and he's more used to like the Geralt hack slash, just you get rid of them in the way that you get rid of them by brute force.
Right, exactly. Blunt object.
And we have the Encina, who is the smooth talker, who's used to social lubricating everything she does, so that she doesn't deal with things with brute force. She deals with it by speaking and like understanding how people react. Which is what the demon is now doing with the scientist, who the scientist understands the mechanics of stuff.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I just like how they're all primed to work together and defeat this thing.
Absolutely. And I like that you, I actually hadn't even thought about that, but you're absolutely mad is meant to be much more of a blunt object, like I said, a Geralt kind of Witcher essentially. And they don't typically. I know Geralt is very smart, but the idea is they don't think the same way that a nonconformist would. That's why she's called a nonconformist. So I like that idea a lot. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think what's really interesting too is at this point, the viewers or readers, they might simply think that the demon was released and that the scientist is kind of not necessarily in cahoots with the demon, but almost okay with what he's doing, almost like he's a puppet master and the demon is his puppet. But the idea that the demon is actually inside the scientist isn't as clear cut yet. So having it this way, I think it works too. Having Encina directly kind of in a way challenge or question the scientist makes the scientist himself seem a little questionable, as opposed to making him seem straight up possessed.
Right. And since he's like, the scientist himself has really no idea, it's very believable.
Yes.
Which is what trips her up and takes them so long.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
then she's like, what the fuck is, because for a second ago you were lying to me, but now you're just you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because it's not a typical, like you said, it's not, it's still tripping her up because it's not a standard like, oh wait, he's lying to get out of this, but why would that doesn't make sense in this scenario, or whatever.
Exactly.
I also like the idea of, and I realize this is getting a little bit into the weeds and the details, but I like the idea of, like, because how I mentioned how, like, the one time he answers it's the demon, the other time he answers it's the scientist in control, essentially. I think it would be interesting if we had a way, like in this story, we had a way to very, very subtly indicate the moments when it's the scientist and it's the demon. But extremely subtle, like not like red eyes, or anything like that.
No.
But something like really subtle, so that way on on a rewatch or on a revisit to earlier scenes, you can pick it out and say, "Oh, I got it." I think that would be interesting.
I like that a lot. How do we subtle?
How do we subtle? Care to subtle?
Maybe
I have an idea.
Maybe very like maybe like some kind of tick, or
but
like
that.
Not a facial tick, maybe kind of, or maybe posture.
There's lots of potential with both those things, and I think posture should be involved somehow, regardless, because no two people have the same gait, walking or standing or posture. I think that should be involved somehow. But I think the biggest thing that first came to my mind that's subtle, that only someone who's paying attention would catch on to, could be as simple as being right-handed or left-handed. And it could be something that, for example, the scientist, when he's taking notes one time, Encina sees him using his right hand to write things down. But then another time, he's using his left hand to do something. And she might, and as opposed to her calling it out, she could literally like throw an object and he catches it with his left hand. And she's like, something like that, some kind of idea that's kind of just to show that something's going on there that seems off.
I actually like that. And partially because that also leans into a little bit of the cultural history of left being evil. And having it be, and this is, and I'm a left-handed person saying this, but the fact that it was considered, left was considered part of like a demon thing. So I actually kind of like that, where like maybe like every time it's the demon, like his writing utensils in his left hand. And and it's subtle enough, because the thing is, I also like the idea of gait, but that's something that she would catch. Being as like, and it would have to be explained away, like why are you walking like that? Oh, I have to poop, or whatever. Like,
right.
It would have to be kind of explained away, where with the left-handed thing, she could kind of explain that away to herself and say, oh, well, he must be ambidextrous.
But you can also say like, oh, I'm ambidextrous.
Yeah, exactly. He could say, he could try to explain it away. He could definitely try to explain it away. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, his posture, if she could just be looking at him. I guess the thing is too, is that in a lot of ways, our eyes into this universe aren't the nomad or the scientist. We're seeing things from the perspective mostly of Encina. So what she's catching a hold of, what she's noticing, we're kind of noticing too. She's our main thing.
I was actually going to say, I kind of like that idea of maybe having Encina be the main.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of is. She definitely has the most entertaining character. When it comes to the fight scenes, I guess Nomad will be doing the most stuff because she's not a fighter. But as far as someone that we can relate to the most, it'll definitely be Encina.
Yeah. And so I like that.
Well, I like her being the window to the audience. Sorry, Ari.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Ari.
No, that was my thought trailed off. Please continue.
No, it's perfectly fine. But so I think one thing too, and my roommate Taylor, TJ, she listened to the first episode. One thing that came up was, she's like, "Yo, this is a Western. Shouldn't the Nomad be a gunslinger or something?" And I thought about it. It's like, yeah, we have to give him. There has to be some kind of a fight scene or something where he does get a chance to. We had to stay within the genre of Western, so he must either have a 6-shooter or some kind of a special shooter.
I assume that he did already.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think as opposed to he just shoots a regular bullet at these demons or whatnot, he might have a special kind of a.
I mean, he could have like silver bullets. He could have blessed bullets. He could have.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, yeah, there we go. I was getting towards that. Maybe blessed bullets or holy bullets, something like this, something along those lines. Yeah, for him to have. Okay.
Okay.
And so one thing we need to do now that we're getting into Act 2 and Encina is getting more and more suspicious, there would be a scene where it could be that at the crime scene, the scientist wants to stay there longer and investigate certain things. We need to find a way to separate the three of them so that the scientist can be by himself to transform into the demon, and that Nomad and Encina can battle with it, more or less, have a chance to actually have a confrontation at least at one time, because they need to see the demon before they. And,
well, oh, I'm sorry. Are you going?
No, you go first.
Well, I had the what I was envisioning for the reveal, and I don't know if we would want to break it into two fights or have it be like a first mini like pre-fight and then the big fight later. But what I was thinking was when the reveal to the Nomad and Encina that the scientist is the demon, I was viewing it like that they're at a crime scene or something, and the demon thinks he has the upper hand enough to basically be like, "Sup, guys?" You know.
Good. I like that. I like that actually.
And then I don't know if that point if he separates from the scientist or if he I'm not sure how that part would be played, but because I definitely like the idea of there being a fight between the three of them where they're like, you toolbox, why didn't you tell us? And he's like, I'm sorry. Like I want that scene to happen, but I'm not sure how to make that happen if we have the demon just completely like fully create within the scientist.
No, you're right.
So what I like about the idea of the demon possessing the scientist is that it's got itself a meat shield. Like he's going to use he's going to, within possessing the scientist, like he's possessing an innocent person. And I like the idea of the final battle being like a combination of the demon acting like the scientist, the actual scientist, and the demon being demon. And the person who knows the demon is being the demon is the Nomad, and the person who knows the scientist is being the scientist is the MC or the NC, Encina. And so she can be like, no, don't shoot him, it's actually him. And then the kind of interplay of that and trying to catch the demon in the demon-y demon.
That seems the best way, is that there's basically, it could even be that there's a separation where Encina's off investigating something herself, and the demon reveals itself to basically the demon believes he has the Nomad alone and has his best chance to attack him, and tries to attack him then, and starts doing so, but the Nomad still doesn't know, isn't aware that it is the scientist, like you said. And then Encina comes back in as Nomad pretty much has him on the ropes, get ready to kill him, and then Encina's like, no, that's actually Nady Beatty or something like that. Yeah, I like that idea. I'm just tossing stuff up, but I like what you said, the idea that the Nomad doesn't know that it's a scientist. The audience doesn't know that's the scientist, but Encina figures it out first and reveals it.
Right.
And that directly stops Nomad from killing the demon in the heat of things.
Yeah, and I think it would be kind of cool if when she reveals it, the demon, the demon kind of does this thing where like his, I realize again I'm getting in the weeds, but the demon's head turns into the scientist's head, and he's like, "Hey guys, it's good,"
Right. Yes.
And then basically, she has to explain to the Nomad, if you do your normal thing and kill him, you're going to kill the scientist. And the Nomad's like, well, fuck, I can't do the thing that I want to do. That I can't do the thing I'm good at.
Right.
So now it's up to Encina to figure out a way, and then maybe through some craziness.
And that's Act 3 is them trying to figure out. The two of them are like, we have to figure out
to like design the trap, and then the Nomad is the one who carries out the plan.
Right. But I guess the two of them working together in full-blown, Ghostbusters crossing the streams, they had to figure out a way. How do we separate the person from the beast, or the demon? How do we do that? Is there a way to do that? And of course, Nomad is going through all his Rolodex. But I'm going to take a quick back step. So I guess to make sure I have some stuff to lock all this in, the idea is that after they investigate the crime scene from the night before at the house, somehow the Nomad and the scientist are alone. And We could even have it that Encina is like investigating the ground zero again. For some reason, investigating the story that the scientist is talking about.
Well, I don't like. I think that's something where, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, story related. She could just be like, I'm gonna go outside and get some fresh air. Like
or get a drink. Yeah, sure. She can get a drink. Yeah, go to a bar. Okay, all right. Just something to separate them. She goes off to get fresh air or get a drink or what have you. And while she's doing that, she's thinking. She's still thinking and processing, and that's when the demon makes the attack on the nomad. But he's not in scientist form. He looks like a full-blown demon for the first time. The nomad has no idea where he came from. They get into a big, huge scuffle, and the nomad is firing off his holy bullets at the demon, trying to hit him. He can't quite hit him. Scuffle, and apparently nomad actually has the scientist, dead to rights, more or less has him right in his crosshairs, and that's when Encina shows up, and she sees him, and she's like, she's like, no, that's him. And she may even scream something as far as like, Dr. Beatty or what have you, in the demon, and she actually screamed Dr. Beatty. Looks over her at her, and instead of by choosing to say Dr. Beatty, and he looks over, it kind of tips off that he's inside there somewhere.
Yeah. I'm wondering. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Processing. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then, of course, once that happens, once it's revealed essentially that they are one and the same, the scientist, aka demon, shoos away, runs off, and that's when the nomad, we still haven't given the name, but I actually like the nomad. That's his actual name. The nomad and Encina regroup, and the nomad might even ask her, how are we able to figure it out? And she's like, it's pretty much like it takes a crook to know a crook, or something like that. Kind of one of those things, more or less.
Game recognizes game.
Yeah, that's even better. Game recognizes game, basically. And so then she starts asking him, is there a way to kill the demon without killing the scientist? And the nomad might not have an answer off the top. It may be one of those things where they have to kind of sit down and kind of actually do some research or think about things. Or maybe that he actually has one, in true exorcist fashion, there's one possibility, but it's very risky. And he's never tried it himself before. So he knows one Hail Mary of a, Deus Ex Machina, but it's very, very risky to do. Okay. And so that's Act 3, getting into that. So do you guys have any ideas in all your demon hunting days of what could be done to separate a host from the demon in a safe manner?
Well, I mean, the scientist is right there, and he knows how he did it the first time. And maybe part of it is like him spouting ideas that sort of gets the nomad to think about like a new method. I mean, that would require us to actually think about how it was done in the first place.
Yes, the ritual, essentially, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I really like the idea of during the final battle, where they come in, or maybe it's in the initial, like, hey guys, I'm really the demon, and so gotcha. I think it would be interesting in that battle if the scientist is still there enough to be dropping clues during the battle.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's part of the demon's plan, because he has to let the scientist out sometimes so that they'll be like, I can't shoot or something.
Yeah.
And then the scientist uses those moments to try and signal or drop clues.
Yeah. And he does it in such a way where the demon isn't as aware.
Yes, the demon doesn't catch on to it. Yeah. There was. Okay. Go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know this is another random, and we've mentioned it in another show. But since we're actually talking about demons, I thought I'd bring it up. So Fallen, with Denzel Washington.
Great movie.
Yeah. I really like the idea of. like I don't know if we'd want to go full Fallen where like, you know, okay, everybody needs to die within 70 miles of the demon to kill it. But I like the idea of there being something like that where maybe the scientist, you know, with his whatever he was trying to do before, what he and the nomad have discussed, and then now that he's actually in the head of the demon, he figures out how to take the demon down. And
exactly. That's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because they are sharing a brain.
Yeah.
So yes, the scientist would know the weaknesses of this demon just as well. Like, I mean, if I was in your head, I know what you're afraid of and that kind of stuff too. So yes. And it could be, we don't have to go too crazy. It could be something pretty straightforward or simple as far as what the demon may be weak to. Could be something like, you know, alcohol or something that because we got to think about as far as what would these people in the Wild West in the, you know, 1800s, what have you, have access to. So it's got to be something that they can, in order to execute this.
There's got to be at least one chapel, right?
Always.
And there's probably maybe holy ground, hallowed ground.
Yes.
And the demon won't go anywhere near that, but maybe they can get a priest to bless some random innocuous piece of land.
That'd be interesting.
Or it could
lure the demon to it.
Yes, absolutely. That's it. But I think it could be even more subtle than that. It could be that the demon, that in a way, the scientist knows this town somewhat pretty well, and he's basically been kind of working the entire time, convincing the demon that there is no church in this area, and the actual church that once was there may have burned down. The ground itself is still blessed, but if you look at it, you wouldn't guess that essentially.
That's an interesting idea.
So once they get there, and it could have been established earlier in some way that that I don't know, someone went to the holy ground or something along those lines, so that the demon just looking at it would have no reason to believe this land he's looking at or gets on top of is in fact blessed. And once he gets there, he's basically trapped. I guess how do we set that up? But I think regardless, that is the idea you had already is perfect. There has to be some kind of holy land that the demon ends up unwittingly.
Right.
And the scientist is able to help.
I don't think it should be the only thing, but I think it should be like maybe the thing that weakens him a lot.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's the thing that weakens him enough that the scientist can then be wrenched free of him. And
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they can you know, like drop the hammer. I really like I do really like the idea of the chapel, like that there was a chapel and now it's, you know, it either burned down or it fell into disrepair to the point where you couldn't tell it was a chapel anymore or whatever.
Go ahead, keep going.
I like that idea just a little bit better because it's easier to set up within the story. Like it's something that can be explained before the scientist even comes on the scene. And, you know, like maybe during the nomad nonconformist meetup, it can be something established then, and then it can be used later when it's like, okay, Act 3, now we've got to get this thing, and this is how we're going to take them down.
Right.
Yes. And the first thought I had when you saying that, though, was there were two things. One is part of this plan hinges on the idea that essentially Encina is such a good talker, she's able to essentially BS a demon, and he doesn't know, he's unaware of it. So it could be that during that night where all three of them were in the inn, there could have been a conversation that the scientist or Nady was having with Encina, where she pretty much tells, you know, I almost got married once over at such and such place, but you know how that place is now. And the thing is, that's the tip. It's pretty much she almost got married at this place that was a church, and then there was an incident that happened and that church got burned down or whatnot. But all that's actually said out loud is they almost got married over there.
Yeah.
And the scientist kind of deduces or realizes that, oh, looking at that rubble and everything, I realized that she almost got married at church. That place there was in fact a church.
Yeah.
And so we can actually see the scientist, once inside the head of the demon, more or less, put two and two together and realize that is in fact a church. And so later on, what happens, there's got to be some way that Encina is able to, in talking with the scientist or the demon again, is like, you know, drop something as far as like, you know, meet me at where I almost got married. You know where that is, or something like that. She says something directly to the demon, knowing she's talking to the scientist, and it clicks again in the scientist's head. When they go there to meet up, he ends up walking directly onto the trap, essentially, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I would say probably not like she wouldn't say married because that's like the demon's not an idiot. You get married in a chapel.
Yeah.
Yes.
The ground is still hollow. So I like the idea, but probably a different thing.
Maybe have it be something
say
like. Oh, I was gonna say maybe have it be something like when she says, "I almost got married over in the over there, but now it's whatever." And but then she also throws in and thank God I didn't, because it would have been the biggest mistake of my life. And then later when she does that, she like reveals to him like, "Hey, go. Remember I told you where I almost made the biggest mistake of my life? Something like that."
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes, I was thinking that as opposed, I was thinking of her saying like, "It's where I made my greatest escape," or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but we're on the same page. So yeah, that's the same idea.
Yeah,
she says it to the scientist basically. And the thing I was going to bring up before was in Stranger Things season 2. There's a part where the character, spoiler alert for Stranger Things season 2. There's a part where Will is possessed by basically these demons or whatever they're called, the flame monsters or something like that. The mind flayer. Thank you, the mind flayer. And the way he's able to talk to his mom and brother while he's under this spell is, or I guess the whole crew, he uses Morse code. He taps it on a chair. Mm-hmm. And so what it could be is, like we established already, that the scientist is right-handed and the demon's left-handed. It could be something as simple as when the nonconformist Encina is looking at the scientist. He's using his right hand to do something, and she noticed that the right hand seems to be independent of what the actual main scientist is doing, almost in a way like it's she's talking directly to that hand, that the hand is talking directly back to her, essentially. And so it could be something like that. It could be actually that the scientist, as opposed to Encina saying it to the scientist writes down, "I'll see you at your biggest, or at where you made, go to where you made your biggest mistake," or something like that, basically. And she kind of looks sideways at it, and then she realizes, oh, that could be, and now I get it. So that could be how the plan goes into motion.
I like that because it's subtle enough that it's the guy writes it. He writes it with his right hand, but she sees it, and the nomad's like, well, it's definitely a trap where he's trying to kill us. But she connects that it's the right hand, but that's not overtly said to the audience. And then it's never overtly said, and then maybe it's a thing that is dropped during the director's cut. But then and then people go back and they say, and they see it and they go, oh, he was writing with his right hand, and that's how she knew. That right. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, little things. Because you're right, it has to be, again, we have subtle enough that scientists inside the body, or sharing a body with this demon, is able to communicate without the demon noticing it. And D, it has to be something that the Encina is able to pick up on and not tip her hand that she notices it directly to the demon as he's watching her right face to face, more or less. So it could be that they, Nomad and Encina meet up with the scientist basically to negotiate some kind of terms, or there has to be a reason for them to meet up. But not for actual fight, or maybe even if they do meet up for a fight, there has to be a way for them to leave wherever they go to this burn down church grounds or something. So I'm trying to think of
maybe it's a thing where the demon, like the and this would be getting into the details of exactly what the demon wants, which is probably just souls or something.
Right.
But I think it would be interesting to have it be that the demon's like, okay, I'll give you your friend back, but you've got to meet me at this place and bring this whatever, and it's really just a ruse. The demon just wants to get them there so he can suck all their souls out and then go and move on and wreak more demony havoc. But and I think maybe that, and that's really all it is.
Oh, I got it. Okay. No, I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Go ahead.
So it could be the idea is that they do sit down to negotiate terms, even in that same bar that's racist as hell. They go there to negotiate terms of some kind, and while they're all sitting down, they go to a public area. That way the demon's like, if you're starting any trouble, I can kill everyone in here before you get a chance to stop me. And they say, so what do you want? We want our friend Beatty back. How do we get him back from you? What do you want in return? And he says, fine, I'll give him back to you, but in return, I want to basically reopen that portal that the scientists closed down. But I but I need the materials. I don't know where to go to materials. I don't know this town. You guys do. Where do I go to get these materials to rebuild, to redo the experiment, essentially? And so that's what it is. And while they're doing that, while they're all sitting down at the table, talking and drinking and whatnot, that's when we can have it that the scientist, writes down. It could be on the surface. He writes down even with his right hand. He writes down what the actual components are, because it has to be the scientist that knows this stuff, what he needs to get. So he writes down the actual ingredient or the components or whatnot are for the experiment. But he also writes down in a small note at the bottom, like a little thing as far as like, this is the biggest mistake of my life, or at the biggest mistake. Something like you said before, as far as referring to Encina narrowly dodging getting married. He also writes that little note there, and something like as far as like, this is the biggest mistake of my life, and she notices it. She kind of like, I get it now. And so so he said, so she's like, yes, okay, fine, we'll do that. We'll take you to where a place is that you can get all these ingredients, these components to make another portal for all your demon friends to come through or whatnot, and you give them to us. And they all go there together, more or less. And once they get there, that's when the demon starts to get nauseous and sick and whatnot, and starts to get the effects of it. And he has no idea what's going on. And then we could have Encina kind of move some of the rubble off of a cross or something.
Yeah, I was thinking that exact same scene. That she kicks like a pew off something that just looks like a chair, and it kicks it off, and there's the crucifix on the ground, and the demon just like pukes or something.
Right, exactly, perfect. Okay, so perfect. That's really good. We found a way to get sense. It's clever enough. Now, I guess the idea is, how do we want to actually? Is it a full-blown exorcism? Is the demon hunter, as nomad, able to basically shoot the demon in a way that does it, or what happens? And this is our end battle, essentially. How do we exorcise our particular demon out of him?
Well, I like the idea of the 6-shooter coming into play here.
Mm-hmm.
So the bullets, I'm not sure about like reading scripture or anything, but
I have an idea. I'm sorry.
Yes?
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, maybe voluntarily, in order to stop being so sick, or maybe because it's stronger, it leaves the body of the scientist after some rigmarole. But when it does, it's so fast and terrible that the challenge becomes finding it and killing it before it can get off hallowed ground.
Right. So I have an idea. You guys aren't gonna like it. You're gonna fine, but hear me out, and we can go from there. Like you said, the first thing that happens, because the scientist was a scientist, no offense, Nady, but he wasn't the most athletic or strong person. The nomad, because he's been training so long and because he's in tune with everything, he has a stronger body and a stronger will and a stronger soul, essentially. So when he gets sick, as the demon leaves the body of the scientist as part of their deal, he does give him up, but he goes into the body of the nomad. And once this happens, the nomad drops his gun, and the nomad, while he still is it coherent enough, is still cognitive of what's going on, he's basically tells Encina that he has to pick up the gun and shoot him dead, shoot him while he's inside his body. He's weak enough now.
Mm-hmm. I had a similar idea, but I removed a step. In my thought. My thought was, they get there, the demon's like, what's happening? Bleh. And they reveal to him like, yeah, you're actually in the Chapel O' Love.
Perfect line.
And the demon's like, no. And then the scientist is able to take over, and he looks at the nomad and he says, shoot me. And the nomad's like, no, I can't do that. We got to separate you. And the scientist is like, that ain't happening. Shoot me. It's the only way. Right. And then the nomad shoots him, and then, maybe we can have a thing where the scientist does live, because the demon is the one who actually took the bullet. I don't know how we want to play that one, but I like the idea of the science, because it's the scientist's fault that all of this is happening.
Right.
It is.
And the scientist recognizes that, and he also recognizes that because he didn't reveal to them he was possessed earlier, that that was it. So he's made a bunch of blunders. So he's basically come to grips with the fact that I need to die. Like we're in this because of me, so I need to die. And then
and like you said before, his character arc was humility. He had the hubris of doing what he did and reckless, pompous or whatnot. The thing that I had though was I like that idea. We can go that route as far as having the scientist pay for his sins. But the idea that the way I want to go in a way is that the best way for the scientist to pay for his sins is to rectify them by doing other things in the future. And I like the idea of if we do kill off the demon hunter, that it would open the door for Encina to kind of carry on the work that he did before her. And also, she's looking for a chance or an opportunity to leave the town. Being a demon hunter, go from town to town would be that opportunity as well. And also, the idea of our nomad is a hero essentially too. The most heroic thing he can do is sacrifice himself for someone else to live, which he wouldn't do.
I like it a lot. In the way that I really like, tragic endings, but it's sort of like a push-pull because I'm also like, but I want to live.
Yes, and I definitely get that. I guess part of what it is as well is that to a horror movie, or this isn't really a horror movie, obviously, but it's a Western. Like Shane, for example, Shane, it dies at the end of that, or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, they died, jumping off into the ravine. Mm-hmm. This tragic hero character it isn't that it just happens out of the blue. He knowingly makes a choice. And we'll show scenes of him actually recounting times he had with laughing with the scientist or whatnot as they bond with each other. He's making a choice to save this man because that's the job he signed on for. The scientist made a mistake. He didn't deliberately try to open the portal to hell. He just accidentally did it. And the best way he can actually have a real redemption would go on in the future and do better things than he did in his past.
Well, I think we can meld the ideas because I really think the scientist needs to have the shoot me thing.
Yes, he has to.
Yeah, like I think he needs to have the like, this is my fault. We're in this because of me. Yeah. And he turns into Al Capone.
Played by Tom Hardy.
Yeah. But I think that it would be interesting if maybe in the melee and again this like and I don't think we need to go fully into details, but in the melee of it, the demon realizes maybe it's a thing where the demon realizes in the fight, I'm in a squishy dumb body. I'm in the squishy brain. I need to be in the strong guy to have a chance to get the fuck out of here. So he willingly leaves the scientist and goes into the nomad and is like, haha, all right, now I've got the strong guy. Shit, you have a gun. And then,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. I like that because the scientist is like, shoot me, and then the nomad's like, I and then it does. And the reason why the scientist survives is because the scientist, maybe he studied a little medicine, and he knows how to like kind of stop himself from dying immediately. And maybe the nomad doesn't aim for a lethal place.
Exactly.
But the demon doesn't know because it's just like, ow, owie, ow, ow. And
right. And you can even say, God damn it, you got me.
And then it possesses the nomad, and then the nomad's like, fuck. I'm the only
right. And then one little step to make a little more go supernatural with it, as far as like the demon's like, oh gosh, I can't possess you guys, because the Encina and the nomad pull that reveal that they have a cross on their neck because they're fighting a demon, and he's like, I can't possess you guys. This is gonna get terrible. I'm gonna bleed out. And then the nomad pulls off his cross. It pretty much breaks it off. Mm-hmm. And Encina's like, no, what are you doing? And the scientist is kind of freaking out too. And she says this wasn't the plan. And the nomad says, yes, it was. It always was. And so then, of course, because the idea is that the nomad, this was his plan from the start. He actually, this is what he does. He hunts demons. This is his life. So he knows what he's doing. And he kind of basically drops the gun as the demon jumps into him. Full-blown Fallen style.
The only thing about that and the reason why I'm hesitant for that particular piece is if the demon has left the scientist and is now floating about, then the demon hunter at that point, why would he pull the cross off? Because at that point we know that he's a demon hunter. He goes and kills demons. So he just needs, like, at that point it's just, oh, okay, back to the handbook. I lift up magical gun and blow demon head off.
Well,
where
yeah,
where with
go ahead.
that it just seems it just seems like the whole time we're like, okay, they're trying to get the demon out of the scientist, and then we get the demon out of the scientist, and then he's like, blink, come get me. It seems a little out of place, and so like I'm just trying to figure out a way how we can make that make more.
Well, part of what it could be is that I think it will be that before the demon has a chance to jump into his body, he does give the gun to Encina. He's like, you have to do this. You have to end me, more or less, before it can do any harm. And then once the demon does jump into his body, he's still on he can't run off. He's still, even though he's in a stronger body, he's still on holy ground. And that does kind of limit his abilities to run around freely or wildly or whatnot. He can't be too reckless.
Mm-hmm.
But also what happens, and this is the big thing, is it does force the hand of Encina. She can't take all day, because now he actually does have the ability to run off and do some stuff. If she doesn't act, he will go off and do things. He's willing to die for his cause, but she has to make the final decision to do it.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, I'm just viewing it that it wasn't, in my mind, it was set up that the nomad is a demon hunter. He knows how to kill demons. And the only reason he hasn't been able to kill this demon up until now is because he was in the scientist. And when they shoot the scientist, it comes out of the scientist, which means, hey, Yahtzee, we've got him.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me for him to then sacrifice himself, because at that point, they have gotten what they wanted. The demon's now out of the scientist. They can kill it now.
Well, I guess the thing is, the demon wouldn't necessarily leave the scientist.
Well,
and I'll die into his body, killing it.
So I mean, all right. So it's out of the scientist, and that means it's easier to kill, but it is faster, perhaps. So they're struggling to kill it, and maybe the nomad almost does, and then he realizes it's so fast that he needs to ground it again. And the way that you do that is you get it to possess someone, and so he's like, all right, well, the only person it's going to want to possess now is me.
Right.
Well,
because we didn't establish the rules of this demon before. I was under the impression the demon had to possess someone. It couldn't just exist, like kind of the same way in Exorcist. Pazuzu has to be in someone in order for it to exist. It has to possess someone. It's like Fallen also. In Fallen, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
So once he shoots the scientist, I guess it's not like it would just evaporate away. More or less, he's like, body now. I'll gladly stay in his body until it dies off from the wound or whatnot. You have the clock is ticking. You shot him. He's gonna die eventually. He's gonna bleed out.
Well, I think. I think one thing we could do as well, and this would just be a simple thing, and then I think it would make it work, and that is they have the demon killing weapon, whatever that is, and in the battle, or for some reason the weapon gets nuked in some way. And so therefore the nomad then realizes, oh dear, we have to go to plan B, and plan B is bad. So okay. And then so I think that would work. I think if we went about it that way.
Okay, that works.
I'd be good with that.
Okay, so it could be that even though the demon is weakened on the Holy Land, and the nomad shoots him, trying to draw him out, he still manages to attack, or he kind of feigns that he's more wounded than he actually is, lunges at the nomad and breaks the gun, or essentially grabs it out of his hand, breaks the holiest of guns out of his hand, and then they're battling in its scuffle or whatnot, and then the gun, it's the actual one of the regular guns, regular pieces, I guess, falls over to Encina, and then, I guess that could be it too, and it falls over to Encina. The nomad quickly pulls off the cross necklace off his neck, and he says, "If you want somebody, take me now." And the demon quickly does it, and then while nomad is still conscious enough, he begs Encina to kill him quickly, while she still can, and she sees that nomad's resilience is wearing down, and she's of course struggling to do it. She has a gun, a regular silver shooter aimed at him, and she's wavering, and then at the last second he turns and he lunges at her, and she of course fires several shots and kills him dead.
Right.
Okay.
And that's it.
Cool.
All right, cool. We got our story.
Cool.
And like I said, then the scientist and her go about their way, and everything else.
Yeah, I like that.
I do too.
And then in the sequel, the nomad comes back as a ghost, and then they're a trio.
Yes, Ghost Buddy Adventures.
Ghost Buddy Adventures. I would love to. I actually, in all seriousness,
I would pay so much money for that.
Yeah. And Cena in the habit, and then Cena gets her own, like, she picks up her own cowboy hat, gets her own cowboy uniform kind of thing, or cowgirl uniform, becomes her own hunter, so to speak.
Look at the art there, buddy. She doesn't have to get.
No. I say second, like dessert after a big steak meal. So I am going to lock in, because I didn't lock in much from Act 3. I'll have to kind of just off memory go through it. Nobody's ready to kill demon, and
it's okay. We'll correct you as you do the.
All right. Then because we're running late on time, I'll just go off memory for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and go through the story here. We apologize for going over time. But let's see here. So as I said before, we are, and I'm just calling the story right now, the working title, just something simple, is The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy. And the genre is Western, setting is a spooky location, time period is the past. Archetype number 1 is nomad. Archetype number 2 is nonconformist. Archetype number 3 is a scientist. And our story opens up with a scientist named Nitty Beatty inadvertently opening up a portal to hell, which brings out a demon which possesses him, and the demon ends up slaughtering the lab assistant. We have our nomad. Later on, we have our nomad coming into town after hearing the whereabouts of a monster/demon. He goes into a bar, and he's met with all kinds of hostility. Our nonconformist character, Encina, has to diffuse the situation by being a wise talker. The two of them hit it off really well, and they become a bit of a duo. He tells her about he's in town investigating of someone that there's reports of a demon or a monster or a ghost or what have you, and she's fascinated by this and wants to get out of town or do something different with her life. The two of them go start investigating the whereabouts of this monster. While investigating, they bump into the scientist, Nitty Beatty. The three of them then go to the ground zero where Nitty Beatty did his scientist and brought the demon forward. While there, the scientist seemingly be having flashbacks or glimpses of something going on and feels really weird about it. Either it be PTSD or some kind of connection, whatever it might be, or guilt of some kind, survivor's guilt. They may cut to the three of them in a hotel or an inn, comparing notes and kind of catching up in a chummy way, so to speak. And it's also revealed that the three of them are kind of loners in their own right, and this is kind of the first time they've had a chance to have a conversation with, being judged or whatnot right off the bat. They bond, so to speak, then they all go to sleep. That night, the demon attacks again. He hits a small home front, slaughtering a family. The next morning, Nitty Beatty, the nomad, and Encina investigate the crime scene, and the scientist seems a bit too enthusiastic while they're investigating the remains. And Encina notices this while the scientist is explaining some things about the lore of these demons and everything. She inadvertently catches him in a lie because she's very perceptive, and the demon and the scientist, kind of caught off guard, seems a bit thrown off by this. And this starts to plant a seed of doubt in Encina's head that something is off with the scientist, but she's quiet about it. She doesn't tip her hand. And throughout, there's a few other things that she knows. At times he seems to be right-handed, and at other times he seems to be left-handed. He claims to be ambidextrous in a weird way. She also recognizes that seems off as well. Then she goes off to get a drink and take a walk to kind of collect her thoughts. While doing this, the nomad continues to investigate the crime scene, and he gets attacked by the demon. While the demon in the scientist is attacking the nomad, Encina shows back up, and before nomad can kill demon, she cries out the name Nitty Beatty to him, and the demon turns to look at her, and she sees in his eyes that it actually is one and the same. She realizes that the scientist is inside the body of the demon, the demon quickly runs off to hide. And then she reveals to the nomad that they're one and the same as well. He asks her how he figured it out, how she figured it out, and she says, quote, game recognizes game, basically. Then the nomad and Encina devise a plan as to how they're going to capture the demon and kill it, and also save their friend, the scientist. They go to the saloon again to discuss terms. And I forgot to mention earlier that when the three of them were hanging out in the inn the night before, Encina told the scientist about how she almost got married, and it was the biggest mistake of her life. She managed to avoid it, and she described where she at, and she described the location that it happened. And the scientist puts two and two together and realized that she's talking about a church. So the next day, when they go to discuss terms with this demon at the saloon, the demon discusses how he'll give up the scientist, let them have him back, but he wants the scientist to give him the components so he can recreate the experiment and bring more demons in before he does it. And the scientist writes down a list of all the things that he will need, as well as the cryptic message, "This is the biggest mistake of my life." And Cena catches on to this, and they realize that the best place to go to set up a trap is on the holy ground that looks like a demolished church right now, like a small demolished building. Once there, the demon, once he walks onto the holy land, the demon suddenly gets really nauseous and weak, and that's when Encina reveals that she reveals some debris to show that they're actually on the land of a demolished church. And the demon starts kind of begging for his life and getting really and the scientist inside the body, now that it's weakened, says to shoot me, and the nomad shoots him right away. And the demon is like surprised and shocked. Are you shooting? What the hell? And he says, now you have very little time. Your body's gonna die off unless you get out of the scientist's body. And the scientist is kind of begrudgingly okay with this. And then he managed to quickly grab the blessed weapon that was getting ready to kill him. It tosses it out of his hand and jumps on top of the nomad. While the two of them are struggling, the nomad removes the cross around his necklace so he can be possessed by the demon. And the gun is then that was being used. Encina picks up the gun. Once the nomad is possessed by the demon, he begs Encina to pick up the gun and kill him dead before he can do any more harm to anyone else. And of course, Encina struggles to do this because she cares about the nomad. And then once the nomad is completely taken over by the demon, he lunges at Encina, and Encina fires several shots off and kills him dead where he stands. The scientist vows to go off and do a lot more charitable experiments and make the world a better place. And Encina adopts the name of her being a demon hunter herself, and dons her own badass demon hunter gear. And that is the story of working title, The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy.
Awesome.
Did I miss any details?
No, you covered it.
Yep.
And now it's time for my favorite part of all parts. Holy shit, Tops! This is amazing. I love it. Oh my god! First, I love the Western frontier that Nate drew over here. That's awesome.
I'm telling you, I do little puppet shows while you guys are doing, like, while you do your explanation and everything. Like, I do little puppet shows here. Like, I have little characters and I draw out the little scenes.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, bless.
Yes.
And then of course the icing on top of icing. Wow, you've done some great work in the past. All right, we all know. We all know this. But this is exquisite. This is some of your best work ever, because partly it's you drew two amazing. All three characters are amazing, but you drew two of them today.
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference is that this is more loosey goosey. I'm not doing like line art. I'm doing more painterly stuff, and it's easier to get more out when I'm just being loose with it.
I love it. I love it. I love that sentence also. It's easier to get more out when I'm just being loose with it. But all joking aside, I do wish y'all, if y'all just listen to this podcast, this is definitely some of Ari's best work. We will have the visuals up on YouTube next week, but also we are going to start posting these things on Instagram and other places where you can see them, because this is just too good not to be seen. But Ari, would you like to kind of describe what you've done or what your influences
well,
were?
sure. I mean, these are our three main characters. On the far left is Encina, in the middle is our doctor scientist, and on the far left is the same bust I drew last week of our main character, or our one of our main characters, the nomad.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And I'll be honest. I will admit that I didn't put two together. To NC was called Encina after that until or she's called
really?
Encina because of the initials NC. But, okay. But awesome. I love these. I love that. That's definitely for y'all who've never met. If Nate was a scientist that somehow brought demons from hell into our world and then was possessed by it, he would definitely look just like.
If that is me, I have never looked that sexy. That's all I'm saying. Is that
all lies?
It's like the pensive, the pensive nerdy, but yet devilishly handsome. Is an amazing. Oh God, I love it. I love it.
Pun. That's gotta be the best pun you made in too. Devilishly handsome.
And you know what? I didn't even mean to do it.
I know. All right, that's awesomeness. That is awesomeness. Do you guys have anything to say before we wrap up here?
No.
I think.
Okay.
I think we are good to go. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed that. Check us out on YouTube. You can also keep up with us if you follow us on Facebook. Or keep most of our stuff up to date there. And yeah, thank you all for watching us today. And I hope y'all have a wonderful day.
Later, partner.
Peace.